I gave Erin a hard time last night because she had me laughing really hard at one point. I was like, no, stop it. But it happened about
Good morning.
I'll look forward to more.
Today is Tuesday, October 8th at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm calling the meeting to order. First, introduce our board members. To my left, Vice Chair Fran Spivey Weber, and to her left, Board Member Didi Diadamo. I'm going to just glue this right to my... I thought I'd be better today. I have no excuse. To my right, Board Member Tam Dodek, and to her right, Board Member Steve Moore. Mr. Howard, will you please introduce the staff?
Thank you. Assisting the board today are Janine Townsend and Courtney Davis. To my left is Michael Lawfer, Chief Counsel. John Bishop is on jury duty, and Karen is speaking on groundwater this morning and will be joining us later.
Great, thank you very much. Emergency evacuation procedures, for those of you who don't already know, look for your exits. If you hear a sound that sounds like an emergency warning, pick up your stuff, take your friends, and go. Our gathering place is in Cesar Chavez Park across the street. That's a good place to be to find out when it's time to come back. Also, the meeting is being webcast and recorded, so please speak in the microphone when you come up. I am not a good role model for this, but you have to speak very closely to it in order for it to pick up, and that's particularly important for our folks on the webcast, so please try. And then finally, please set your cell phones, beepers, etc. on silent. Good. Now we have some Sustained Superior Accomplishment Awards. These are always terrific. Craig, you're first.
Can you hear me okay? For the record, my name is Craig Wilson. I'm the state's Delta Water Master, and it gives me great pleasure this morning to award a Sustained Superior Accomplishment Award to one of the employees of the Office of the Delta Water Master, Drami Secho. Please come up here, Drami.
Hey.
And just a very brief background on this. When the Delta Water Master Office was created in 2010, a very small staff was included in that authorization, and Drami was the first hire that was made into the Office of Delta Water Master. And one of the things we decided that she would work on right away is to help us gain more certainty and more information about how many people were diverting water in the Delta, more certainty about some of the water right claims. And it's the two vehicles we were using to try to accomplish that were the reports of permittees and licensees that have to be filed with the State Board, and also the statements of water diversion and use. And historically, those programs had not had a very high compliance rate. Something like 60% of the people in the past had filed these reports. And so I asked Drami to try to really, try to do a really good job in the Delta to try to get people to file these reports so we could get more certainty. And she really took this task to heart. In 2011 reporting year, which the reports were due in July 1st of 2012, of 360 reports that were due, 359 were filed, all but one. And last year, where a much larger portion of the Delta was brought into the program, of 2,275 people that reports were due, all but about 10 have filed. And we are going to be probably going into an enforcement mode on that, 99+%, both years. And it was largely because of Drami's efforts. She developed some really good letters and reminder letters. She followed them up with contacts of people in the Delta that helped us on compliance rates. And she just was a very persuasive and friendly way to try to get people into the program. And I'll just close by reading an email. I received several emails from people that Drami dealt with in the Delta, and this one kind of epitomizes her attitude and the way she goes about her job. It reads, "Dear Mr. Wilson, your employee, Drami Secho, has been so incredibly helpful that I feel compelled to write you to tell you how cooperative, knowledgeable, courteous, and personable she has been to me and my brother-in-law. It is a pleasure to deal with her and to get such prompt responses to our inquiries. If all your employees are like her, you are a lucky man." And I am a lucky man, so with great pleasure I make this award to Drami. It includes not only a beautiful certificate, but a small monetary award too. So thank you. go up with the board members and take some.
Hey, Barbara, great.
May I go? For the record, I like the way Craig starts. Some of us don't automatically start with "for the record." I'm Barbara Evoy. I am the Deputy Director for Water Rights, and it is my pleasure to do 2 more Sustained Superior Accomplishment Awards to the 2 gentlemen who look like they're ready to be shot against the wall. So we have Mark Gowdy and Lucas Sharkey. Would you come up? You don't know that these are two individuals who are normally just delightfully funny and easygoing, and then you put them in this setting, and all of a sudden they we have these faces instead. But I am very pleased to be giving this presentation. So what we have are our 2 top modelers for the Division of Water Rights. And these 2 have done a spectacular job of getting us through some of our major Bay Delta decisions. We have a model that they have created that has taken key elements of the CalSIM model, which is a gold standard. It's a great model, but it's very time-consuming and labor-intensive to run. And they have taken elements of that model and made it into a model that we could do more cost-effectively in-house, that we could run more quickly, that's more agile, so we can try different kinds of scenarios on it. And they have managed to get us way down the line on a lot of our major decisions by having this good model that is available. And those of us who know squat about modeling know that it's really hard. And so as a result, we have referred to these 2 as super modelers, which of course has created all sorts of interesting ideas for the last couple of days. I've had suggestions for sashes. I've had suggestions for a red carpet. I've had suggestions for all sorts of things, but they truly are our super modelers. So with that, I too have certificates and checks. But first, just so you have a visual. So without them, this would be our modeling technique. All right, just a simple roll of the die. But with them, we have something that is really special to a super modeler, something that's gold standard. It's just so wonderful. So I just wanted to make sure that they had another gift to take away. The check is nothing, I'm sure. So with that, we have Lucas's and the check. Mark's. Oh yeah, there is one for you. There you go. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great, thank you all very much. Just for pacing, today's board meeting has a number of time schedule things, and so we may, if we go really fast, we may end up with longer breaks, and it looks like we'll probably have a full hour for lunch today because we won't start the afternoon session until 1. So I can't signpost when or whether we'll take a break, so we'll just have to play it by ear. The things we're waiting for are on the agenda, so we'll just do the best we can. It promises to be a long-ish day. Thank you. Tam, you can be my assistant. That's very good. I just don't like it in my face. So with that, let's move on. Right now, it's time for public forum, and the board will hear from anyone wishing to speak about anything not pending before the board. Anyone? We have no cards. All right. Minutes from September 24th. Is there a motion?
I'll move for adoption with some amendments that were made late last night.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? Sounded it. Okay, we got the minutes. Reports. Any reports to make?
I attended the Region 4, LA region, Ventura region board meeting, and 2 things came out during the board meeting. One was and I'll just say this to all of us as well as to staff who are out there, some questions about, the care that we take when we put together stakeholder groups. Now, putting together stakeholder groups is good because it gives you lots of input. But what the question that was raised is, how often are we looking beyond the usual group that we turn to for the stakeholder process? Are we looking at community groups that might have a voice or a role to play? So I just wanted to raise that as an issue. It's something that that Region 4 is starting to really delve into, and kind of along those lines, they also had I reported last 2 weeks ago that they were having a training session for staff on outreach to the public. And they had it. It was extraordinarily successful from all reports. And one of the things that came out, and we just saw it today, was the need for all of us to be much more appreciative of the successes that we have, almost every board, regional board, recognizes successful staff work, but we really don't talk about this a lot to the outside public. And so that was one of the big messages of that particular training session, is really more of a campaign mode of letting people know what it is that we're doing right. We certainly let them know some of the things we do, but we don't sometimes brag enough. That was the message. And secondly, Kevin Graves of our staff was thanked for the state board taking over the low-threat closures, a huge chunk of low-threat closures. LA has the most, and they were drowning. And so Kevin came to their rescue, so we're very pleased with that. Thank you.
Well, I have a couple of things to report. About 2 weeks ago, I attended the Delta Conservancy's Delta Dialogues. I think about 2 months ago, Les Grober appeared before this group, and this is a group that's been formed, stakeholders in the Delta, stakeholders that are involved in BDCP, and it's just an effort to get folks to sit down and talk to each other and try and see if there's a possibility for some relationships to come of it, especially with respect to folks that are on opposite sides of the BDCP. So Les spoke to the group a couple of months ago. He gave a presentation on our proposed Bay Delta water quality plan, And at that time, the group realized that it was really important, it would be important to have state board involvement. So they asked to have a board member represent the board, and I believe they sent a message to Felicia, and so I ended up with the assignment, and I'm just thrilled because it was a terrific opportunity. Interesting discussion of a straw man alternative for BDCP, and it was understood going into the discussion that this was not the venue to make any changes, but just put something out there and see what emerges. And it was interesting because there were a number of times throughout the day that I was quite surprised to see how little folks knew about the details of BDCP and some of the alternatives that had been proposed. So this allowed for an opportunity to have a discussion in a very non-threatening environment. It's a pretty small group, and even though there was no agreement reached at the end of the day, folks thought that it was important to continue the Delta dialogue. So I will be going to those meetings periodically. And then I know Board Member Moore will be talking about this as well, but we just had a great time last week over at Mono Lake. Big celebration day for the settlement agreement amongst the four parties, and it was a big kumbaya. It was just really exciting to be there and see the four parties of Department of Fish and Game, LA Department of Water and Power, the Mono Lake Committee, and Cal Trout all holding hands saying, you know, the big accomplishment and announcing the agreement on flows and also some non-flow measures that need to take place in order to allow the flows to get back to the lake. So very exciting day. Please jump in, Steve, if you have anything else to add. And I thought I'd mention also that Undersecretary Gordon Burns joined us as well.
Well, thank you, Board Member Diadamo. Yeah, that was very memorable, and only thing I'd add off the top, you know, the DWP General Manager, Ronald Nichols, you know, raises glass of water, toast to the new era of cooperation, and there was much rejoicing and much affirmation with enthusiasm among all parties, and I thought that was notable. And that I'll cover two items besides that great event, which was only a week ago Monday, right? In the ensuing days last week, last Friday I was asked to speak at the East Bay Municipal Utility District's annual barbecue meeting at Pardee Dam. And in attendance were a great diversity of water districts and nonprofits, elected officials throughout the mountain counties, a real diversity of stakeholders, and they asked me to speak on the topic of collaboration and cooperation. And in the event, East Bay Mud is highlighting a year of many collaborative projects with many other agencies and organizations and watershed groups. Including Contra Costa Water District, Placer and Yuba and Nevada County Irrigation and Water Districts or agencies, and their participation in the Upper Mokelumne Integrated Regional Water Management Program. And so I actually took the opportunity to share that event that Dee Dee and I attended in Mono Lake as a real milestone in California in terms of collaborative efforts of diverse parties. So that was a nice nexus, and to offer some encouragement for collaborative processes that East Bay Mud has undertaken, and really just recently a lot of different projects. So that was positive. And then, so that was the East Bay Mud event. And then the day before I was in San Diego, I was asked to speak at the second annual Cal DSAL conference. And of note there, it's good to remind folks that Cal DSAL, the organization, really has within its mission not just the issue that we're taking up this year with the ocean plan and the ocean desalination issue for water supply, but also part of their mission is the issue of desalination technologies for brackish water, groundwater resources, and that's the second mission of theirs. And the third mission is just the overall issue of salinity management. And so there are many speakers at the conference that touched on this critical issue for California in all parts of the state, you know, down in Santa Ana region, San Diego, but also throughout the Central Valley. And so they did a nice job of having a diverse group of speakers and covered a lot of good cutting edge issues with those three subject matters. So it was a privilege to be able to share that and speak a little bit about my perspective on those issues. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Two quick reports from the Central Valley Regional Water Board meetings last week. On Thursday in Stockton, at a very nice Ag Center in Stockton, the Regional Water Board held a workshop on the irrigated ag order for San Joaquin and the Delta. They obviously got quite a bit of feedback from the growers in the area, and they're in the process of, as you know, reissuing all the various ag order in the Central Valley. Also at that board meeting, the Regional Water Board adopted their dairy WDR in accordance with the writ of mandate issued by I believe it was the Court of Appeal. And so the discussions for that item focus on anti-degradation and complying with the anti-degradation policy. So I just bring it up as a reminder, even though I don't see Charla in the room, how important and how critical that effort is that we're starting here at the State Water Board. And then finally, on Friday, back in Rancho Cordova, the Regional Board considered a couple of items, but the only one that I will mention here, because I thought that it was very significant, was we've heard several updates on the Delta Regional Monitoring Program. Well, the dischargers have requested from the Regional Water Board a commitment to consider modifying their existing permits to allow for participation in the Delta Regional Monitoring Program in lieu of individual monitoring efforts. And the Regional Water Board did that unanimously on Friday.
And thanks. I'll just mention a couple of things. One is I went and I spoke at the San Gabriel Valley Water Forum last night, which brought together water districts and the public. It was billed as something for professionals as well as novices, with an overview of the water resources in the San Gabriel Valley. And if anyone hasn't yet been to the San Gabriel Basin Water Quality Authority on a tour, I would recommend it, because as we are talking later this afternoon, and as we talk frequently about stormwater capture, they've been capturing runoff from the mountains there for 90% of their water. They capture 90% of it for decades. And so it was an interesting place to be, where folks have been dealing with stormwater as part of their lifeblood. Not urban stormwater, but mountain stormwater. They still could incorporate some of the urban stormwater, but I just encourage people to go. Aaron Brockovich was the other speaker, and we were interesting bookends. We agreed on a lot of things. We didn't talk about the same things, but the things we talked about, we agreed on. And it was just, it was they had a lot of students from universities and high schools around the country, but I just encourage people to pay attention to San Gabriel Valley as an urban stormwater capture location. There's more to it, but I just highlight that. The other thing related to that is, as we are working within the administration on a reorg of the drinking water programs from CDPH to the state board, I've been trying to go and visit treatment plants and talk to people on the drinking water side, because we've all been working with them in different contexts, whether in reclaimed water or just because they have a wastewater component or they're involved in flow issues and the like. So I went to the Met's largest treatment plant in Laverne. We'll be going to East Bay Mud soon. I just encourage folks to start diving in, no pun intended. Can't really dive into drinking water. I guess you could, but to start engaging and asking questions about their both expectations, hopes, fears, advice, etc. And at the same time want to commend Liz Haven in particular for her leadership both on the internal reorg team, which got kicked off, I guess, last week with 70 people, half from the water board, half from the drinking water program, as well as with an external group of stakeholders that also kicked off last week, and we'll be meeting every other week through the rest of the year, except on holidays, to try and figure out how to engage and do this and be able to create a proposal for the governor in the most thoughtful way possible. So that's going to be a high priority coming up. And then finally, just one other highlight we'll report on at the next report. Tam and I are going to LA on a Monday for an environmental justice convening on groundwater contamination. A number of the staff here, staff from DTSC, Cal EPA have been working with us, and we were invited to a convening to talk about ways to clean up groundwater contamination in the LA area more quickly. So we'll report back on that in following reports.
I had one other addition.
Sure.
So I forgot to mention Board Member Spivey Weber's crucial role with Mono Lake. Of course, your name was mentioned throughout the day as being pivotal in what Board Member Moore referred to as a new process of collaboration. So thanks for all your efforts.
Well, thank you. And what I'd like to propose is that once the final agreement is worked out within the Water Board, because we have a big role to play in terms of a new permit, and while it can be signed off on and should be signed off on by Barbara as the head of that division, I think it'd be good to invite the various parties to come in at least as an information item to let us know what is in that agreement, and it'll again give us an opportunity to really internalize what it takes to make some of these things successful.
Thank you. Item 3, uncontested item. Do we have any cards, Ms. Townsend? All right. Motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? All right, that one carries. Mr. Howard, item number 5. 4. 1, 2, 5. Maybe I should get some caffeinated at the break.
For the Water Quality Waste Discharge Permit Fund, and today the Water Rights Fund is before you for an update in the regulations assessing fees for the program. And I guess Darren is going to, Darren Polhemus will lead off.
Actually, today I'm going to let David take the heat since I worked on the water quality fee one in front of you. So David Ceccarelli is our chief of our fee unit, and he'll do the presentation today.
Good morning, Madam Chair, fellow board members. I'm here to present, again, for the record, my name is David Ceccarelli from the Division of Administrative Services, and I'm here to present this item adopting by emergency regulations amending the water rights fee schedules. Briefly, I just wanted to start by pointing out that over the past several years, the Water Rights Fund has been carrying a large fund reserve. And over these past several years, we've been drawing this fund reserve down and using the fund reserve to offset the need for fee increases. Under the current fee schedules, the fund is estimated to end fiscal year 13-14 with a 9% fund reserve, which is about $1.5 million. Since the size of the Water Rights Fund is overall relatively small, about $17.5 million, a 9% fund reserve is relatively small considering the potential of unexpected cost to the program or economic uncertainties. Therefore, to ensure sufficient revenue is available to keep the fund solvent, staff is proposing to increase the annual permit, license, and pending application fees by increasing the per acre foot charge from the current fee of 5 cents to 5.3 cents. This will generate an additional $900,000 in revenue, and the fund would anticipate in fiscal year 13-14 with a 14% fund reserve. In addition, as we do annually, staff is proposing to adjust the caps on applications and petition filing fees based on the changes of the Consumer Price Index. The CPI adjustment is 2.2%, so the caps would be increased by 2.2%. Finally, staff is proposing to amend Section 1068 to specify that the current $250 registration fee for persons who register an appropriation of water for small domestic livestock pond or small irrigation is non-refundable. We're proposing this amendment to be consistent with our other registration fees. Our other registration fees are non-refundable, and we want to ensure that this one is non-refundable. So those are the three proposals that are part of this resolution.
Questions? Okay, great. I have one speaker card. Philip Williams, Westlands Water District and San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority. Hi.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Can you all hear me? Thank you for your time. My name is Philip Williams. I represent Westlands Water District, San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority. You've received the written comments by Mr. Dan Kelly, legal counsel for the California Farm Bureau Federation, the State Board. Westlands and the San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority are simply want to make clear that they are petitioners in that pending action. Specifically, we would insist on 3 points. That the proposed regulations impose a tax on water users in violation of Proposition 13. Secondly, that the proposed regulations unconstitutionally impose charges on water rights held by the United States and unlawfully assess federal contractors. And finally, that the regulations are arbitrary and capricious. Given the court's pending decision on October 30th, at the end of this month, we would encourage the board to take into account its proposed statement of decision. Pending your questions, ma'am, or members of the board, those conclude my comments.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. All right. Any discussion? All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
That was sort of a quiet second.
Oh, yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposition? All right. It
I think
carries.
we all need caffeine.
Thank you. I know, it's not just me. It's because it's cold. All right. Thank you all very much. Next, item number 5.
Yes, item number 5 is a resolution to add the San Luis Obispo County Los Osos wastewater project to the water recycling program's construction grant competitive project list. And we have Daniel Newton and Bethany Payne presenting.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'm Dan Newton, Program Manager for the Water Recycling Funding Program. Moving to your right with me today are James Garcia, also with the Water Recycling Funding Program, Bethany Payne with the Office of Chief Counsel, and Julie Rizzardo oversees the Water Recycling Funding Program. Item 5 before you today is the consideration of a request to add the County of San Luis Obispo's Los Osos wastewater project to the Water Recycling Funding Program's competitive project list. Addition of that project to this list is necessary for the project to receive grant funding, of which the county is requesting $4 million from Proposition 13 for construction grant. The Los Osos project is a septic to sewer conversion project with an estimated cost of $173 million. The treatment facility will provide 227 acre-feet of recycled water annually for landscape and agricultural irrigation purposes. The item received one comment letter, and that was from the County of San Luis Obispo itself in support of the grant. They also requested funding retroactively for construction already started on the recycled water project. However, the Water Recycling Funding Program establishes funding starting eligible at the point of a funding commitment, which is the resolution today, moving forward. We don't recommend deviation from that principle. At this point, I'd like to also give a brief background and a project update on the Los Osos project. There's been, over the years, several attempts to start a project in Los Osos. The most recent went as far as receiving disbursements from the State Revolving Fund. However, in 2006, Assembly Bill 2701, which passed unanimously, delegated project responsibilities to the County of San Luis Obispo. Since that time, the county has accomplished much. This isn't a conclusive list, but they've performed a successful rate increase. They've coordinated with the Coastal Commission, developed a water conservation plan, developed a recycled water management plan. They're participating and finalizing a draft groundwater basin plan. They've produced several reports and studies exploring project alternatives. They've selected a project, and last but not least, they've secured some favorable funding. To focus on the funding aspect, both the State Water Board and the United States Department of Agriculture is co-funding this project. USDA is funding the first half. It's basically a 50-50 split, and they're providing an $87 million loan, of which $4 million is grant. The State Water Board's Clean Water State Revolving Fund is providing $86 million in financing, of which $7.5 million is principal forgiveness. The Department of Water Resources is also providing a $5.8 million grant. The county has been aggressive and successful in obtaining grants. If you include the grant today, if we're successful, they've roughly summed about $20 million worth of grants for the ratepayers in Los Osos. Another success for the ratepayers occurred in 2011 when the county reapproached the board to reduce the SWRF interest rate from 2.6 to 2%. That came with a stipulation that the county operate and maintain the wastewater treatment plant for the term of the contract, which is 30 years. They agreed to that. In August of 2012, the county started construction on the collection system of the project. As of last month, the collection system is 50% installed, and USDA has dispersed roughly $52 million of their $87 million funding. Today, the county is actually going out to bid on the treatment aspect of the project, and that'll be the final contract for that project. So that brings us today with the basics on the project and a little background. The county anticipates they'll approach SWRF for disbursement starting in the new year, roughly January, if everything goes as planned. In addition to the four of us up front here, we also have representatives from the county, Pavo Ogren and Ray Dienzo, that would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have. And that concludes my, my intro.
Great. Any questions, comments? It's an epic story. Over time, Mr. Ogren, I have a card from you, if you'd like to speak. Thank you for coming.
Certainly. Chairperson Marcus, members of the board. Pav Ogren, Director of Public Works for the County of San Luis Obispo. And, you know, first and foremost, I just want to express my support for staff recommendations and request that your board approve staff recommendations. I also want to make sure to express my appreciation for their work on this and coordination with us and Ray Dienzo, who helped with the preparation of the facilities plan and the grant application. Mr. Newton had mentioned that we've got more than 50% of the pipes in the ground, 2 different construction contractors working on that. The pumping facilities are going to be initiated pretty soon. And also, as Dan had mentioned, the Board of Supervisors is in hearing this morning to consider approval of the plans and specifications for the treatment facilities and advertising those so that we can award that contract by the end of the year. Thursday, I'll be heading down to San Diego for a Coastal Commission hearing on the Los Osos wastewater project for some minor modifications to the project and generation location of some of the generator buildings along the coast. Sort of not related to the wastewater project, but the other piece of good news that is coming at us this month is that it appears that we have successfully worked with the CSD and the creditors, and that the final plan of adjustment for the bankruptcy is imminent as well. So things are definitely looking up for the community. My little human interest story that I'll share with you is that after we got started on the construction of the pipelines, and we were repaving some roads and doing that. One of our senior members of the community, an individual, she's over 90 years old and has lived in Los Osos for 60 years and have witnessed a lot more than I have, wrote a nice letter to the editor speaking to the paving crew, and they appeared to be working like a ballet. And so we have gotten a lot of positive support from the community. And again, appreciate your staff's work and request support of their recommendations today.
Thank you very much. And I don't know. And thank you very much for stepping up. Thank the county. And as a former Public Works Director, I salute you because I know how hard your job is. So thank you for taking this on.
If I might also add to the chair's remarks, my thanks to you and other officials from the county. This project has come such a long way. So thank you so much for your commitment and all your hard work.
Thank you.
And I can't let this go, but I also want to thank you. No, it's been great, absolutely great. And the county has been very diligent in talking with us all along the way and keeping us up to speed. I'd like to also share, and I've shared this with Jim, there was a recent study done by Berkeley, I believe, UC Berkeley, on the use of recycled water in streams, and they looked at it from a cost-benefit perspective. They looked at what what was the benefit or cost to wildlife, recreation, and aesthetics. And they found a very strong positive. It was really quite remarkable, particularly in the area of aesthetics and also recreation, because a lot of people use streams, and they do in your area as well. And the impact on wildlife was really quite, it was quite modest, actually, and certainly doable. So I just want to make sure that you know that our staff, our recycled water staff, is aware of that study. They might want to look into it a little bit more, but we really can start to look more broadly at the use of recycled water in other areas besides just watering the grass and agriculture, which is obviously an important use there too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move adoption of the staff recommendation.
I'll
I will
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
She can have the second on that one. Yeah.
Steve and I were fighting over the seconding.
On the last one,
To share them?
yeah, we'll do rock, scissors, paper.
We can let people know our secret decision-making tool. Terrific.
No, that was the dice that Barbara gave away.
Right.
Yes, item number 6 is the information item on the high-speed rail project. Certainly a very large project in the state of California, and we have quite a bit of work to permit all of the elements of that project. We have Annalisa Kahara will introduce the other staff who don't seem to be there. But
They're not here yet.
All right.
We do have representatives from the authority that are on their way. Oh, that would be great.
Well, Craig is going to talk about the area of origin laws. It seems to attract a lot of attention as a subject in the water rights arena, and he's going to throw some light on the subject for us.
Good morning again. I won't repeat my on-the-record statement from earlier. My name is Craig Wilson, the state's Delta Water Master. As you know, one of the statutory responsibilities of the Delta Water Master is to present reports to the State Water Board and to the Delta Stewardship Council on various water resources issues. This is the 8th report that I've submitted to the board and to the council, and it's entitled California's Area of Origin Laws. You know, I've heard these laws described as kind of the sleeping giant of California's water right laws. And the question is, you know, why write an article or a report about this subject now? I think there's several reasons. There hasn't been a lot of articles written about this subject, and a lot of them are in law review articles, kind of in legalese and quite detailed. And a lot of them were written right after a specific court case was decided and kind of talk about that individual case. You know, so I think it's time to kind of have a reminder, try to put the whole idea in perspective, because it does have the potential to really dramatically affect California's water future. So what I've done is, because there have been several recent court cases that discuss the area of origin laws and various ramifications, I think it was useful to go through those cases to try to distill some general principles out of that, and try to present them in kind of, you know, plain English format so people could kind of, you know, wipe away the mystery that surrounds some of these laws. You know, I think as water supplies are stretched even more thinly into the future, and climate change and water demands of the North increase, I think the area of origin laws will become much more relevant to California's water future. They said this thing was running out of juice. I don't know if it is or not. Oh, here we go. These are the three main area of origin laws: the County of Origin Law, the Watershed Protection Statute, and the Delta Protection Act. You know, I put the dates in parentheses because you'll see from my further discussion the dates are very important to understanding how the area of origin laws work. There are two other laws that probably come under the subject matter area, heading of area of origin laws. I discussed them very briefly in the actual report, but they're not as much important. These are the three most significant. So something about the intent and purpose of the areas of origin laws. It's kind of almost a reassurance to Northern California water interests that as various portions of the major export projects were developed and formulated, that it would alleviate fears that Northern California water interests would not be protected. You know, the Owens Valley issue was fresh on people's minds, and so that was one of the major reasons and a part of the compromise to get some of the authorization for these major export projects through Northern California. Wanted some of these reassurances. Here we go. On to the dates. I think these reassurances kind of took place at each major stage of the water development projects. The first act, the County of Origin Law, enacted in 1931. It was really kind of in response to a law that had been passed a few years earlier that had kind of reserved to the government unappropriated water for development of the projects. The second statute, the Watershed Protection Statute, was part of the state's Central Valley Project Act, and was again reassurances when that act was authorized. And then finally in 1959 the Delta Protection Act was tied to protection to the passage of the State Water Project itself. Again, getting kind of into the common purpose of the laws, I think number one, it was to ensure that areas where water originates should have adequate water supply for present and future needs. The laws were not intended to preclude export of water to other areas before those needs arise. Instead, the needs of the area of origin would take priority if and when they arose. Now, on to some of the court decisions and opinions. I did at least want to mention there were these two relatively old Attorney General opinions written in 1955 and 1956 that went into quite a bit of detail about the area of origin laws. And I think there's still of some importance and relevance in understanding them. And I put the citations in the report themselves. But, I think with these recent court cases, 4 of which have occurred since 2006, I think we now have courts not only having some precedential authority statements, but persuasive authority, in the words of the lawyers, dicta, in some of the cases. You've got a lot of more recent pronouncements as to the intent and purposes behind the area of origin laws. And while all of the cases, in the specific case and the matter before them denied the area of origin claims, I think the cases themselves broadly interpreted the protections. I think it's kind of important to see who the authors of these cases were. Two of the state cases were authored by Justice Ronald Roby, one of the preeminent water jurists of our time. The federal case was actually upheld a decision of district court by Judge Wanger, who was also a water jurist. And the other state case was authored by now Chief Justice, if I don't butcher her name, cont'd Saka-Haue, who was sitting on the 3rd District Court of Appeals at the time she authored the opinion. There were a couple of older cases that did have some relevance. I didn't put them into the report, but there was one, Fresno versus California, back in 1963, that got into the area of just what is a watershed, what is the area of origin protection. And then there was obviously the California versus U.S. case in 1978, the New Maloney's case, which clearly established that state water law applied to the operation of federal projects, and that those state water laws included the area of origin laws. But I think having these 4 reported cases since 2006 makes it kind of useful to go through them, which my report did, and try to distill some general principles and conclusions. And so I listed the conclusions that are in the report, if I can get to them. These conclusions are basically, my view of things, and there might be some disagreements on some of the issues. In fact, I'll actually draw your attention to a couple of places where there might be disagreement, and you might hear from people on the subject. But I think the intent of the law is very clear, is to provide some measure of protection to the areas of origin. The law is written, all the laws are written very generally, and that's why these more recent court opinions are very important in understanding what they mean. And like I said earlier, while the cases, rejected the area of origin claim, they established some pretty broad principles, and I think they kind of established some of the outer boundaries, because I think the plaintiffs in virtually every one of these 4 cases that I discussed in my report, they were kind of really reaching, and probably reaching too much for what these laws might mean. Like, one of the plaintiffs was trying to get preference over other uses within the area of origin, and the court said that was not proper. And another one of the cases, maybe 2 of them, the plaintiffs were trying to say that the area of origin laws actually established a water right in and of themselves, which is really not the state of affairs. So, in deciding the cases, while the claims were denied, I think the principles established were very broadly construed in favor of the broad protections. Whoop, going the wrong way again. I don't know what's happening. This thing's running out of juice again. Here we go. The one case that most directly implicated the area of origins laws in the most recent case, the Tehama case, was really more of a contracts interpretation case. The plaintiffs were trying to get a priority that their own water service contract directly contradicted. So again, it was a situation where it was fairly easy to deny the area of origin claim, but the court in that case was only decided a couple months ago, went through the 3 earlier state cases that I presented and kind of tried to distill them to some general principles. And I think, a common theme of all of the cases was that the laws unquestionably apply to both the federal and the state projects and in the Delta watershed. And they also make it clear that the laws do not independently create water rights for area of origin inhabitants. Rather, a right must exist before the protection of the laws may be invoked. we go. But where there's no water rights actually in existence, the area of origin laws do provide a means for an area of origin inhabitant to acquire a water right that would have priority over the water rights of the export project. So in essence, it would kind of flip-flop the first in time, first in right principle for area of origin inhabitants, and they would go to the top of the line. The area of origin laws do not entitle valid water right holders to divert water that's been previously stored upstream and released for downstream rediversion or in-stream beneficial use. It basically is protection for natural flows in the system. Okay, thank you. There we are. No, one more ahead of there, I think. Back up one. Yeah, there we go. But rather, when you're talking about stored water, you know, my opinion is that the area of origin inhabitants have a right to purchase stored waters from the project, but that receipt of that water would be subject to the terms of the parties' contracts. Here's one that there probably is some difference of agreement between people. You know, my reading of the cases, especially one of the Roby cases, was that the federal government as well as the state government would be required to sell water if people asked for it, but there probably is some disagreement on that grounds. And also, the issue of whether the contracts would be subject to water restrictions and stuff. I think some people in the north would probably argue that, notwithstanding that the Tehama case, if they were coming in right now asking for service contracts, that they, you know, may be entitled to some type of priority. But I think the Tehama case, you know, is contrary to that. Thank you. You know, talking about just the delta itself, it's kind of unique because you have these stored water bypass requirements, and you're talking about natural flow. But in the delta, there's always, you know, water even during dry years because of the way an estuary works. So it's, you know, there's certainly the area of origin laws provide a protection to valid water right holders in the legal delta as to this natural flow. But whether there's enough natural flow in the delta to satisfy all the water right holders is an open question. And obviously, you know, water use is subject to reasonable and beneficial use and efficiency. So with that, you know, I'll just wrap up and saying, you know, these laws have been around for a long time. They haven't been really talked about too much until fairly recently because of these recent court cases. I've tried to go through these court cases, distill some of the general principles and articulate them as clearly and as in plain English as I could. And, you know, I think in the future these laws could really, you know, come into play, especially with climate change and the change in some of the patterns of natural runoff and flow, where people in the north may be trying to seek the protection of the area of origin laws to a greater extent than has happened in the past. So with that, I'll close unless there are any questions.
Yes, thank you, Craig. I appreciate the over.